Welcome to Homeowners for Justice, Weekdays Live. I'm CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice, and your host for today. We're going to be focusing on Oakland devastation today. Oakland is a microcosm of what we are facing in this country, and we need to pay a special attention to it. Everybody needs to get on board with us on this. I want to start with this YouTube that was sent to me. A lot of people are sending me links now. It's really wonderful because this is what it's going to take. We need to get together to organize and fight back. The people are right. The people are right. This is a theft. I think you'll enjoy this.
These men are predators on the American taxpayer money. These guys are not the job creators, they're the job destroyers. We need to bring the money back to the people. We need to start getting money to help people stay in their homes. This man is a crook. This man is a criminal, and people need to shout out about this man and 18 other cronies that have been stealing near zero interest loans from the people.
Promised me foreclosure for 3 years, and we sold my house for $100. Don't face the people that we foreclosed.
Stop foreclosures now!
Stop foreclosures now! You can give the world $1 million, and you can't give her modifications either. There's a day coming. Stop foreclosures now! 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 Stop foreclosures now!
Without a doubt, today we're going to have with us, as soon as he Skypes in, so he's not with us yet, but we're welcoming Darwin Bond Graham. He's a writer in Oakland, and he's written several articles which we're going to be featuring and asking him questions about to share his research. The bubble, the short, the long, the recovery, and the inequity of this recovery. This is the problem with Oakland. In particular, over the weekend, I was notified by a resident of Oakland who said that there was an incident yesterday. She sent this to me actually on last Monday, so this would have been a week ago. I'd like to read what she wrote. There was an incident yesterday in the 3700 block of Fruitvale Boulevard in Oakland. This is my understanding of what happened. The Alameda County Sheriff arrived at the home in the morning to foreclose and evict the approximately 60-year-old man living there. The man pulled a gun and the sheriff pulled back. A shot was heard inside. The man took his life. This information is public record, and she gets a text whenever there are incidents in Oakland, which is how she knows about this. I've also got on the screen an article from May 15, 2012. Most people have never even heard of this, but Wells Fargo harassed, lied, pushed this family through such incredible trauma that the man committed suicide, and then Wells Fargo foreclosed on his widow the next day and evicted her. These are Norman and Oriane Rousseau. And the fact of the matter is, the people are on their own. We're fighting our battle individually, and this is why the banks are able to win. This is why they can take the houses, because we're each fighting separately. And as you've looked at last week, which I'd like to talk about the events that we did last week, because what we're building in these live stream shows is an online training and awareness program. You can watch any of these shows archived. They're all there, and what I've actually done is posted what the shows were each week, so it's quick to see. So last week on Monday, we talked about how the banks have bought off the OCC with the new settlement. We started our discussion with forged documents, showing some documents and helping people understand what forgery looks like and what is wrong with the documents, why we call them forged. Then on Wednesday and Thursday, we discussed securitization, the tangible and intangible property types. It's fascinating, and we're going to continue that discussion this Thursday, citing the law, the statutes. There's two different statutes that the banksters have intentionally confused and misrepresented. This is why so many attorneys in the country, the judges, the people are so confused, and why the banks have been able to win. They've confused us, but we can straighten this out, and we can fight back. And then on Thursday, I highlighted a section, the law, the new law for California, SB 900, and posed some suggestions and questions that perhaps we can actually get more legal rulings in the people's favor because of some of the things SB 900 actually states. And in fact, on Friday, Occupy Fights Foreclosure in LA shared with us a draft presentation that they're going to the Los Angeles County Recorder, and pushing to get what we've often called an affidavit of foreclosure authority to be able to stop the documents from being recorded. You got to understand, if they can't record the forged documents, they can't foreclose. And if we can stop the foreclosure mills from filing their forgeries, we've got a foreclosure moratorium. We'll keep the houses. Then the next step will be, okay, how do we clear them of these loans? How do we get the loans modified? How do we move forward? But right now we have to stop people from losing their homes. That's number one. And so I wanted to point out that you can just go to the weekdays live. Right here, I have a post just before today's live show about how what we did last week. So each week I'm going to go in and summarize what we did that week, so you can quickly find this information for your use. Now, this coming week, I'd like to point out today, hopefully Darwin will join us. I don't have him on the show yet, and that's okay. If he can't make it, that's fine. We're going to feature his articles because you can read them for yourself, and we're going to discuss what the point is. And the point is, they bubbled our prices, they shorted. As the loan values fell, they shorted these mortgage-backed securities. Then now they're buying the houses, they're gambling long, meaning they're looking at the future appreciation, just like any normal investor would. And the reason I know this so well is because I am a real estate investor. This is how I became a broker. I was a longtime investor and became licensed so that I could buy investment real estate. And so we're going to talk about that, and he's got some very well-written articles. And then tomorrow we've invited Laura Mills to talk to us about public banking and how to get money out of politics, and why it's so crucial that we do that, because tomorrow we're going to also share with you a lot of information about corruption in the courts, how the judges are corrupted, how they actually have a vested interest in ruling for the banks. We're going to show you that their pension funds, what they're invested in. And this is a humongous conflict of interest when the people can't get justice in the courts. We have a real problem, and I want to make sure that you understand it's not just the people losing their homes. This is everybody in the country has a serious problem when the courts are corrupted. You got to understand. I'm getting feedback from people from Russia, people from Bulgaria, people from overseas, and they are saying, no, that our courts over there aren't nearly as corrupt as you are here in the United States of America. And let me tell you, that is a huge warning shot. You and I, we must raise the awareness in this country against the corruption in our court system. When the poor people can't get justice, which is happening all the time because they can't even go to the courts. But then now we've got people that can. They have resources. They're going to the courts. They're showing the courts that we've got forged documents on our real estate, and the judges are saying, doesn't matter. Bank gets the house. Then you and I, every person in this country, is in serious danger. You pay attention. This is super problem. So back to the rest of this week. We're going to again have a foreclosure defense workshop on Tuesday. That's tomorrow, right after the live stream show. Anybody fighting foreclosure, please, watch the show if you can. Watch it, archive if you have to. Pass it on to everybody that you know, so that everybody fighting foreclosure can get the value of these techniques and facts that are going to be shared with us with Forensic Auditor. That's Linda is going to be sharing that on tomorrow. Then Valerie on Thursday is going to be again bringing in the statutes, the rules, the law, our code, our statutes that address the physical property laws and the intangible, the tangible and the intangible. We started that discussion last week. I believe it is the heart of why MERS has been able to get around laws and why so many people are so confused. So this is really important we've got coming. And so today, I don't have Darwin yet, so I am going to move forward into some of the devastation that we see in Oakland. I'd like to share with you this foreclosure map. The fact of the matter is, Oakland has over 1,000 homes facing foreclosure auction just in the next 3 months. Basically, this is about a 2.5 month window. This picture only shows 500 homes, but the fact is these people are each having to fight on their own, and they are desperate, they are ruined, they're feeling frustrated, they don't know where to turn, they don't know how to proceed. And the fact is, the banks are going to just take these houses. They're going to just foreclose on them the way they have already. So, what can we do to help? Well, here's one of the first articles that Darwin wrote. And I'd like to read some of it, because what he's done is tremendous research in the facts of what has been happening in Oakland. Between 2007 and 2011, over 10,000 homes in Oakland were foreclosed. Of loans originating between 2004 and 2008, nearly 1 in 10 have gone into foreclosure. This is a tremendous amount. Notice how it's focused on certain zip codes. We see this a lot. And what I want to point out, whenever you look at a foreclosure map, or you understand foreclosures, or you think about the price devastation, how values fall because of foreclosures. And the reason that happens is because banks dump their foreclosed properties. And the reason they do that is because the government pays them for the difference. So it was never their money to start with. It is not their money now. And they make money foreclosing. That is the point. That's why we have such a problem with this. So notice whichever areas had more loans, more toxic loans, they're the ones that get ruined. So if an area had a few toxic loans, those people experience ruination. They lose the house, they lose their credit, they lose their down payments, their credit's ruined. But it's relatively few compared to the majority. So you'll notice that some of these zip codes over here, like 07 and 05, 94605, those have not had nearly as much devastation as this heart of downtown Oakland. The 10, 06, 02, 11, those zip codes have really suffered the trauma. And what has happened is those tend to be the lower priced, the poorer people. They were able to get these toxic loans, and so they borrowed, and so they're ruined. Now, when they're ruined, what happens? When a bank dumps the property and sells them, guess who's buying? It's really a no-brainer. The people buying are the investors, those with cash. So you notice, as Darwin writes, it didn't take long for those with capital to take advantage of the crisis. As the Urban Strategies Council has reported, wealthy investors now have snapped up 42% of completed home foreclosures in Oakland at auction. That means they go to the courthouse steps and they pull cash out of their pockets and they say, I'm going to pay cash for this. And so what's happening is that we see a tremendous transfer of wealth from homeowners who were suckered and lied to and cheated with toxic loans. They've lost, and now the investors are coming in with cash. They're winning, and they're able to buy these properties at 25% of the debt. So if the debt was $300,000, they're buying them below $100,000. That's why they will win. So big money has been stepping in. Now, right here, 93% of these investors are located, and 93% of the homes they're buying in Oakland's low-income flatlands. And guess what they're doing? They're turning them into rental properties. I've been saying this for 2 years. The whole point of both the investors and the banks as they solicit hedge funds into buying these properties is to create securitization contracts with rental contracts, and the hedge funds and the investors, they will benefit from all the appreciation, and guess who loses? It's the same players that lose. The people lose, the city loses, the communities lose, because now you've got a community of renters instead of a community of homeowners. And so now and of course it tends to always be this case because the banks targeted they were racist and predatory. We make absolutely no bones about that. And this also should be a huge signal to our community, our country as a whole, that the folks that have different colored skin in our country are being targeted by these financial predators. I find it outrageous. And so you've got Black and Latino neighborhoods. Thousands of homes, especially in the East Bay suburbs, are being transferred from local ownership to absentee landlords. Nothing less, Darwin writes, as a vast transfer of wealth and power. Now, I'm going to tell you the entire sweep of the U.S. housing bubble, the financial crisis, the foreclosure wave, can therefore be told by looking at persons and companies with intimate links to Oakland and the Bay Area. Here's what he was writing about. Central to this story is an ex-Goldman Sachs trader raised in the East Bay's exclusive Oakland Hills. So now you've got somebody from Oakland who helped the mortgage industry create the nationwide housing bubble because he figured out how to underwrite these complex mortgage-backed securities and credit derivatives. Of course they exploded. That was the point. And of course they cheated all of the credit default swap insurances like AIG, which you and I bailed out as taxpayers, and why I'm also so outrageous and outrageously upset about that, because we're bailing out our own ruination. And alongside this whiz kid are several hedge funds, some of them listed in the Bay Area, many with headquarters in Oakland, all of them busy buying up foreclosed homes across the region and the country and transforming them into rental portfolios. They're taking the value from U.S. families as we've been driven from home ownership, as the people lose, the powerful moneyed interests win. And this is truly an outrage. Literally everybody, because most of us, there's about 300 million in this country, and I've heard numbers like 564 people are really the ones that are leading this crisis and winning hands down with it. We have the majority, and everybody in this country should be outraged and upset about this. But notice, he points out the recovery doesn't involve getting owners back into the homes or getting a new home on fair terms or current low prices. Rather, it's about spreads. That's what they're working on. So you'll notice that his name is Josh Birnbaum. I thought we have a picture of him in one of these articles, and here's a picture of Head Royce, Oakland's most elite private high school. And Josh's dream in finances was encouraged by an uncle who he greatly admired, and graduated from Head Royce School, from this school, the elite K-12 private institution in Oakland Hills. Currently, tuition costs $31,000 a year, and he had his sights set on becoming a business executive and financier. I'm telling you, this is what we see. This whole industry, this whole foreclosure crisis, the mortgage-backed securities, the derivatives, the AIG, all of this stuff were typically dreamed up by just a handful of people. We can name who these people were, like Mazzillo, who did head of Countrywide, who suddenly in his Senate banking hearing can't remember anything. I don't even know what it means to have a stated loan. He's lying, and we're allowing these people to lie instead of putting them in prison. But I'm telling you, it's just a few people that have caused this, but they could only do this because the rest of us are not watching what's going on. We're not watching the store. And this is part of the problem. We need to get educated. We need to become aware. We need to insist on transparency. We need to have our own revolution. We need to change what money is. We're going to talk later this week, and then next week we're going to focus on solutions to this crisis. We do not have to put up with this. Iceland hasn't, and I'm here to share with everyone the kinds of things that can be done to save our country, get people back in their homes, and make sure this doesn't happen again. Notice down here in this first article, the bubble, the short, the long. Oakland's Birnbaum soon took a full-time job at Goldman Sachs and carried on with the work of securitizing home loans. And he expanded into credit default swaps. Birnbaum's career took off with the housing bubble, but what really made him a star within the bank was his idea for how to make billions off the coming crash that was supposedly unthinkable. You got to understand that these guys set this up. This is the setup. They knew what they were doing. They knew it was going to lead to people defaulting. They designed these loans to blow up. They knew the people couldn't pay them. They knew the people couldn't get refinances. They knew the people would be foreclosed on. They knew that would drive down the value of the mortgage-backed securities. So they knew that at the right point in time, they would short these very instruments they put together and cheated our pension funds and Iceland and everyone that's invested in them. They knew this. They should be held accountable for this. This is a criminal conspiracy. We should demand it. We should insist on it. Let's mull over how we can. So, Birnbaum and a few other key players orchestrated one of the biggest killings in Wall Street history by betting on the very products they'd spent 20 years, 2 decades. Tell you look at my website, I've got a 1-page overview of this crisis, and they started in the 90s. They had to get the laws in place. They had to get MERS in place. They had to get the bailout in place. So it wasn't just commercial banks, but it could be insurance companies and investment banks. They knew what they were doing. They bought off Congress. This is a planned conspiracy to steal the houses from the people for their own wealth. So here's a chart that Darwin has on his article. And this is the chart, securities index, referencing housing equities in various CMOs. These are collateral mortgage obligations, including those that Goldman Sachs structured and sold. This was created by Goldman Sachs and a handful of other Wall Street investment banks that served to make the markets for, and these are just the generic terms for mortgage-backed securities. I end up calling them generally MBSs, but this is the point. There's CMOs, CDSs, and other housing derivative products. Goldman even owned part of the holding company that controlled the administrator. These guys aren't stupid. They are insiders. They are the ultimate casino insiders, and they manipulate everything for their profits. One of Birnbaum's clients asking for ABX.HE trades was the Paulson and Company hedge fund. Paulson was unlike other clients. In 2006, when few suspected anything was wrong, Paulson and Fund was asking Birnbaum to make bets that were extremely contrary. Paulson was making a here's the picture of Birnbaum. Paulson was making a multi-billion-dollar bet that the U.S. housing prices would decline, and that these declines would be large enough to cause millions of homeowners to default. These defaults would cascade through the system, triggering credit default swap payouts, just like what happened. All this would mean enormously big gains for those buying protection through the ABX.HE market. By buying protection, Paulson and Company were said to be gaining synthetic exposure to the U.S. mortgage market. I really wish Darwin was with us today. He's obviously not been able to make it. He would be able to explain this better, and we can certainly have him on in a future show answering some of our questions. So if you have questions about this, please don't hesitate to email us right now, whenever you can. Any questions that we can pose to Darwin. Anyway, they bet short, and they made billions of dollars by massively speculating on a crash. So Birnbaum, of course, convinced Goldman higher-ups to adopt this process. Paulson went in and said, look, we think this is going to happen, and Birnbaum and crew know a good bet when they see it. And they went to Goldman Sachs and they said, hey, look, let's us do that too. Here's the kid that's ruined your life. You wanna know who to blame? Let's start blaming this guy. Let's start dunning him. Come on, activists. We can come up with something. Let's start making these people's lives personally miserable. They personally have benefited billions by this scam, and it's all a scam, it's all a conspiracy. And near the end of the show, I want to propose how we can fight back and how we can keep our homes, and maybe how we can get some of these billions of dollars back. Because maybe there's something that we can dream up. Come on, guys, I'm looking for some help. There's a lot of smart people watching this, and this is what I want to do. I want to connect with each one of you. This country needs us. They need us now. So back to Birnbaum. Various accounts of The Big Short, which of course now is, I think, even a movie, definitely a book. I'm not positive about that. Claim that Goldman's employees were thinking there would be a modest to serious event leading to big market disruptions. Few Goldman employees admit to thinking the entire financial system was speeding toward a cliff. But they're not going to admit that now. Are you kidding me? But even if they did, Darwin writes, none of them took action. They never verbalized concerns to federal regulators at Treasury, or the SEC, or the White House, or the Federal Reserve. In fact, they sold off their own mortgage-backed assets, all of their warehouse of mortgage bonds awaiting securitization, and then aggressively bet against the market. So I'm telling you, these people knew in advance what was happening, and they capitalized on that. You know, that's basically insider trading. Smells and stinks like insider trading to me. So let's figure out how we might be able to get some of those kinds of charges to stick. So you'll see Goldman's traders leverage their bets for even bigger profits. Darwin goes on talking about the conflict of interest. Goldman makes these products, bets against them, wins both ways. Come on. And the fact is this: even if we can't get any of these kinds of charges to stick, we might be able to start making some media noise about it. And the more noise, the better, because the facts are these. They own this game. They own our money. They own Wall Street. They are doing this short, long manipulation on all of the products on Wall Street, whether it's stocks or whether it's bonds. The fact is, the people, we must get together and we must change the game. Until we change the game, we're in their game. And when we're in their game, they win. So let's think about how we're going to change the game. I've got some really good ideas, and we're going to be talking about those this week. Next week, I want to bring up every show how we can start to change the game, because this is crucial. We, the people, are going to lose our land, lose our rights. Courts are going to stop judging legally according to law and judging for the party of interest, whether it's the banks or the Wall Street or the wealthy. And if we don't want our country to keep sliding like that, we have to rise up and we have to change the game and bring these people to justice. So here we go again. Let's finish up in this article, and then he's got a couple of other articles I'd like to share with you about the housing market and the recovery, and how the recovery is inequitable. Obviously, we're having a recovery without homeowners. So here's Goldman Sachs made the bet of the century against the very same products they'd created. It's one of the most scandalous revelations, and led to a $500 million SEC penalty. The point of these penalties, and this happens over and over and over, I'd like to focus on that, and I have articles. The credit union has given me local articles and about how Wells Fargo, B of A, the mega banks, they make all kinds of money breaking the law, and then the penalties are like less than 10%, 3%, 2% of what they made. It may be the biggest penalty in history. That's not the point. The point is, how does the penalty relate to the crime? I believe when these crimes are committed, the penalties should be all the money back plus the penalty. That's what I believe. So here you've got Goldman Sachs winning by making billions of dollars. The penalty is half a billion. That's literally the cost of doing business. So the fact of the matter is, it goes on and on about how different places have been ruined. Everything that the people invest in, the banks are taking with impunity. And now they're playing the housing recovery. This is the next article he wrote. This was in January 9. This was just published. The Federal Reserve quantitative easing program, and I want you to understand that that program actually is the Federal Reserve buying off the mortgage-backed securities, no end in sight. The MBSs are fraudulent. They are lying and cheating types of instruments, And the Federal Reserve is saying, oh, no matter, we don't want to prosecute the banksters. We're just going to bail you out. It's another bailout for bank pockets, and the people are going to lose. We're losing because the Federal Reserve is just, the money is just pouring out. Well, actually, it's credit. And like I said before, you want $1 trillion? Click a computer key. Boing, there's more credit. They are creating credit to the tune of trillions of dollars, buying off the banks and allowing these very same banksters to do it to us again. This is why we must stop this mess. Home prices are now rising fast. And of course, home values have increased almost every month this last year. But that doesn't mean that they're being sold to homeowners. Now it says here, it doesn't reflect an increased demand from middle-class home buyers. Let me tell you something for experience. I mean, I actually counted how many offers my company, me, I'm just a little independent real estate broker, and I don't represent banks, and I don't get bank listings like the big mega brokerages do. That's how they're mega brokerages. They've partnered with the banks. They get all the listings. They do a horrible job. It doesn't matter. They get the business anyway, so they win. People on the outside like myself, we struggle. So we just have a buyer that we've represented for 1 full year, well, actually a little longer than that, and we made 88 offers for that same buyer. That buyer has been desperate to buy a house, and this isn't even in Oakland. This is in the Bay Area. It's in Sonoma County. And the facts are these. The buyers cannot get a home because a buyer has to have a loan. Most home buyers don't have all cash. They don't often even have 25% cash. So they're using FHA, they're using valid loan programs, and they get nothing because cash comes in, like on this article, and cash pays over asking price and wins. So even though we're making offers daily, multiple offers daily for our buyers, and they can't get anything. So this is the point. Even buyers that are totally qualified can afford it, can even afford over asking prices, cannot get it because sellers, sell to cash. Why sell to somebody with a loan and have to wait around for the loan and then run the risk of the appraisal not coming in at price? That happens a lot, by the way. The appraisers come in and they say, oh, well, I don't think the house is worth $276,000. It's only worth $272,000. And so then the buyer and the seller have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, who's going to pay for that $4,000 hit that the appraiser just said it wasn't worth? And why would they say that? So that's a whole nother discussion that I will be bringing up with other brokers that feel like I do in the real estate market. The banks have ruined the market. They've made it so that the only people that can really win are all cash buyers, and basically big all cash buyers, because even small investors with cash, individuals that do not have big banking backing, they how much cash does it take? Well, let's say the house is $100,000. So even if you had $1 million in cash and you wanted to put it all into real estate, that's still only 10 houses. So when you talk about some of these organizations buying 1,600 homes, okay, you know, that's in a different league. This is in the hedge fund league of cash buying. And this is why even the investors, even the small-time $1 million investors, I can hardly believe I'm calling $1 million investors small-time. But the point is that even with these investors, we don't win. You won't win. You're going to be outbid and outgunned by the mega guns that are coming to our market. Here's the last article that Darwin wrote. I'd like to share, and all of these links will be on the comments after the show. The financial crisis of 2008 was terrible for homeowners saddled with heavy mortgage payment, and I'm telling you, there are homeowners even in 2010, 2011, maybe not 2012, but definitely even last year, owners that purchased homes in some places that are saddled with debt that still, are upside down, because it depends, like we've talked about. Remember the areas that not all areas are equal? You can talk about averages, but actually what you need to understand is that most places are not average. They're either horribly decimated or they're not nearly as decimated. So you have this big spread, and it's the people that are in areas that have been badly decimated. They're the ones that are going to be hurt. So even in 2010, a lot of those people are still upside down. And when you're still upside down and you're stuck with a high interest rate and you can't refinance, if you have any income loss, if you have any disaster in your life, you're toast. You're toast. So look at this. I want to just read these out loud, just in case you're listening and not really watching as much. According to CoreLogic, about 4 million foreclosures have been completed since 2008. Since 2006, when the first subprime loans began to default, there have been 9.4 million foreclosures started. To a select group of hedge funds and investment bankers, the financial crisis that pivoted on these foreclosures was the opportunity of a lifetime. Almost makes you sick. And I know dozens of people personally that have been ruined, that have lost their homes. They're emailing me, they're screaming, help me, help me, help me. I want to keep my house. And the fact is, it's an individual battle. I call them fighting the battle at the door. And this is just, they lay awake at nights, they don't sleep, they don't eat. Their whole life is colored with this misery. And here you have hedge funds and investment bankers are calling this the opportunity of a lifetime. It is so incredibly wrong, I can hardly bear it. Some of these elite investors are tacking backwards and betting on a recovery. And so now they're buying by the thousands. It's a strange recovery. There are no homeowners, very few. I mean, of course, some homes are being sold to owners, particularly at the higher market price points. But so many of these foreclosures are going to the investment funds. And, oh, don't you love this one? I want to highlight this. Low interest rates fostered by the Fed are causing big money investors to purchase foreclosed single-family homes in blocks of hundreds, even thousands. This is a homeownerless recovery. Just like the jobless recovery, this is the homeownerless recovery. And so what's going to happen is that when prices rise and eventually these investors want to sell, the homeowners will be the ones paying higher prices. So they're getting ruined in the first place. They're cheated with a cheating loan. They're cheated with forged foreclosure documents. They're cheated with a taxpayer bailout to the big banks in their pockets. They're cheated by not being able to buy a home now at these low prices. And they're cheated again when the prices recover and the banksters decide to sell. They'll have to pay a higher price. So now what we've got is multiple ways the people are cheated. And every last one of them has put money in the pockets of the banksters. This is outrageous. So, and of course, like Darwin has pointed out, not only did the foreclosures cause home prices to fall, but I keep pointing out the devastation of this is with the fact that it ruined the construction industry. 80% of the people in construction lost their jobs. And they cannot build because when prices are 50% of the cost of construction, you can't build against that. In fact, I just put up now my new sign because I want to say one more time, the foreclosure has destroyed the home values, construction jobs, the economy, our life, our future, and there's millions more loans that are upside down. Over 2 million loans are upside down just in California, and millions are still being foreclosed. We've got over 1,000 facing foreclosure right in Oakland, like we talked about. And the point of the matter is, if they're not going to sell them to the people, they're going to sell them to investors. They're going to take our houses and they're going to keep them away from the people. We already know they've got millions of vacant homes, and we already know that Fannie and Freddie are selling them in bulk to private entities. They won't tell us who. They won't tell us what they're selling them for. They're selling, they really wanted to sell 1 million of these vacant homes to private hedge funds. And we just have to stop that. If we don't stop that, the inventory, our people, significant portions of our people are going to just be renters. They're not going to be able to ever buy a home again. And in fact, in one of these articles that Darwin wrote, I'm not exactly sure where it is right now, but he mentioned that only 10% of the people that have lost their homes are going to be able to buy again. This is a disaster. This is a slow-moving tsunami. A tsunami, typically in just a few hours will create horrific devastation. This is taking a few years, but the devastation will be every bit as bad and every bit as permanent as a normal tsunami like what Japan experienced. So we'll learn, and he's pointing out that Wall Street's derivative innovations turn out to be cyclical products designed merely to package up unsustainable obligations, sell them to some other unsuspecting yahoo. And I'm telling you, if you are on a pension fund, if you are on any of these investor products, investment vehicles, looking at Wall Street products to purchase for the investment, don't do it. Let's just not buy any of that stuff. Let's get all of our pension funds, all of our investors, everyone we know, to not buy anything that Wall Street produces. That would be one way, because all you will be, if you buy that stuff, you're going to be a sucker. And the rest is history. They've done this in real estate. They're doing this in stocks. They're going to do this in bonds. They're doing it in everything they do. Everything they touch. They're the insider casino, and the house always wins. You've got to learn this. So a few people saw it coming. The rest is history. The rest of us have been ruined. And this is what we must stop. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, because I talked at the beginning about here, can we get back? Is there some way that we can get our houses back, get the money back, and stop this transfer of wealth, which is trillions and trillions of dollars? So this is my idea. This is my suggestion. In this last part of the show, I wanted to show you an article that was done earlier this year called Securitized Distrust. And I want to point out the 8 things, I think it's 8, issues that are wrong with the securitization and the paperwork. This is a Dynamite Honolulu foreclosure defense attorney. He has over 40 wins with the Dubin law firm in Hawaii foreclosure courts. He has written this insight with over 20 years of firsthand litigation. And this is the point that he is saying. The securitized trusts, the bundling and selling of shares to investors, is not understood. It's understood by very few people. Most lawyers don't get it. Most judges don't get it. In fact, Norman Sirak in his book actually states, he was a brilliant attorney that passed recently. He stated that in law school, most attorneys who eventually become judges, because that's what attorneys do, they become judges. Judges are attorneys first in general. They hated real estate law. They hated it, they didn't get it, and the fact is now the people and the few attorneys that do get it must stand up. So listen to what this attorney says. First off, number one, promissory notes intended for securitized trusts based on his experience were either intentionally never deposited into the securitized trust in the first place, on purpose, with full knowledge by everyone involved, or they were deposited in the trust only as copies. And see, comes in the tangible and the intangible. We talked about it last week. We'll talk about it again this week. The tangible notes, the promissory notes, these were the tangible properties. They were either destroyed or never entered in as a real full promissory note of tangible property. They were entered as an e-note, copies. They were e-notes. And so those were missing. He's picked this up. Number two, based on the testimony of whistleblowers and forthright bank executives, lenders intentionally destroyed most of the original notes, and instead, before doing so, digitized them. That's the e-note we just talked about, supposedly for convenience, which of course destroyed their status as negotiable instruments. You got to understand that in our statutes, in our property laws, the only thing giving anyone the right to foreclose or is that note. You have to have that note. It used to be when banks held on to that note, they would put them in fireproof safe deposit box because that was their proof that they had loaned the money. You lose that note, it's like a bearer bond. It's like a check. Somebody writes you a check, says pay to the order of, and your name is, on the front, and they endorse the back. When you hold that check, it's like a money order. That is money. That is yours. But what if somebody comes along and steals it? Or what if somebody burns it up? It's gone. You can't take ashes into the bank to get your money back. And this is exactly what the banksters have done. They've destroyed the notes. They can't take ashes into our courts, you would think. This is why when the judges rule for the banks, we know they're corrupt, because this is not appropriate. So, number three, at first it appeared that it was just sloppiness, but subsequently in their cases, they have discovered it appears to have been common practice intentionally not to deposit the notes or the mortgages in the securitized trust, but to withhold them and unlawfully use them on the side as collateral to support loans or credit from federal home loan bank boards, a practice that apparently mushroomed as lenders found themselves in financial trouble and in need of capital. I'm telling you, they double dipped. He's found this out legally. I'm going to see if we can't get him as a guest on the show when we start talking about how we can get attorneys to help us fight back and get our houses. Number four, documented evidence was recently just been brought to my attention that many notes and mortgages were put into 2, 3, or more separate securitized trusts. In other words, they sold the Brooklyn Bridge over and over and over to anyone and everyone. They did not fully disclose this. They've cheated. This is why I say they've stolen, they lie, cheat, and steal. And every foreclosure is a theft. Number 5, all of this recently surfacing has of course started to generate a massive amount of litigation between lenders and investors, and mortgagers and insurers and title companies, in which inevitably the question of fraudulent notes, fraudulent mortgages, as well as fraudulent mortgage assignments has occasionally arisen. Oh, and by the way, he's talking about these assignments. I want to point out that last night I added several more names to my forged signature page on our website. These are names that I am building a database and samples. You can just print these. These are the same name on two different documents, many times in different counties. Same name, like Rick Juarez, different signature. Melissa Myers, different signature. Those two, Melissa, happened to be on the same loan, on the same property. So on the same, you got to look at your documents. You may have different signatures of the same person on two different recorded documents on your property. This is where it's at. And I'm going back to his number 5. Just this week, I had an incredible hearing before a judge on one such case involving a claimed lost mortgage assignment that the bankster obviously said, oh, we lost the assignment. And they tried to submit in court a false note. These banksters are forging documents in front of judges and they're, in this case, probably not getting away with it. Over and over and over, I'm telling you, they're getting away with it. Case after case after case, I hear about this. We have to stop this. Number 6, all of this, of course, is pregnant with fraud and criminality, particularly against the MBS investors, the mortgage-backed securities. Securitized trusts, I've already known this. I've been talking about this. They have special IRS pass-through preferential treatment. They call it REMIC, which is Real Estate Mortgage Investment Conduits. And they're able to pass through the income. In other words, we don't pay any IRS taxes because these are just passed through. They're long-term. IRS said, yeah, sure, fine. And what I want to know is why isn't the IRS going after them, because these were not pass-throughs, these were fraudulent, and all of these foreclosures are also fraudulent. So having violated the REMIC requirements from the IRS could cost the securitized trusts millions of dollars. He calls it a ticking time bomb. I'm wondering if they've already tried to buy off the IRS. Wouldn't surprise me, because that is their modus. The way the banksters work is that they collude and buy off the regulators. So we just saw it with the OCC. They've already bought off Treasury because Geithner just said, we're going to bail them out. We're not going to charge any of them. We're never going to look at anything. We're just going to bail. Department of Justice, Eric Holder, he's a longtime bank attorney. We're not going to charge anybody with fraud. No. So they've just been, bought off. Now we see the OCC, we're not going to go after every foreclosure that was fraudulent and make them pay for treble damages for each one of them. Give all these people a house back, which is what the people deserve. And the banksters should be in 3 hots and a cot, the slang for prison. And so I suspect they've been buying off the IRS. So number 7, as a result, as all of this began to surface a year or so ago as a corollary to the so-called too big to fail hobgoblin, the Obama administration regulatory agencies began to seek frankly to cover things up, recently convincing the attorney generals to settle with the 5 big banks. That was that $25 billion settlement, which if anybody sees any money, it's a shock. They're going to use it up for principal reduction. And you got to understand, this is the cost of doing business. This is the $25 billion for a $7 trillion profit. They have made so much money. They've fractionalized all of these loans. I don't even want to go into it anymore. And so here you have an attorney in Hawaii point blank calling the Obama administration and the agencies covering this up. I've been saying now for 6 months, it's the government cartel and the rise of the land barons. That is what it is. And so now he summarizes with the effect on borrowers has been dramatic. As foreclosures increased, securitized trusts have had a huge problem how to foreclose without the notes, so they falsified the notes when needed. They created phony allonges, phony bearer notes, fraudulently notarized and fraudulently signed mortgage assignments are in the trusts. They're on our records. You can look at the My Forged Signature page and see the forgeries are typically in the assignments and the trustee substitutions. This is where forgery has been done massively by millions and millions of documents by specific foreclosure mills. In California, a big one is Recon Trust, Cal Reconveyance. 2 of the mills have been shut down in Florida, but unfortunately not put in prison because one of them has just reopened up with a new name. So at first, foreclosing mortgages got away with it as judges and attorneys were virtually unanimously unaware of what's going on. Now he's understanding and there's more information coming out, and this is why, please, 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 forward this information to everybody you know. This is the corruption of our courts, the education of our courts. We must fight that corruption with this education. We must start to demand and take money out of court politics, take money out of politics if we can, because literally the people that have all the money are using it to buy all the regulatory agencies, all the government agencies, and they will take your house next. You may not think you're in danger. Everybody in this country is in danger. So he points out mortgages, of course, in Hawaii are recorded at the State Bureau of Conveyances, but as a result, mainly due to the use by securitized trusts of MERS, he's talking about MERS here, mortgage assignments have not been recorded on the property, which has generated even more legal issues. And it goes back to the tangible. Assignments are tangible, but in intangible, it's just a transfer. That's why the Oregon Supreme Court justices were expressing confusion, because the MERS attorney kept saying it's a transfer. And the Supreme Court judge said, yeah, but it should be an assignment. It should be an assignment. And MERS does not have the authority to foreclose. That is the legal technicality, that every one of these foreclosures should be reversed. So here's the point. What if you and I started a campaign to reverse every one of these foreclosures, take all of this stolen property back, and it's just like stolen property. Who cares who owns it? If a hedge fund owns it, oh well, take it back and let the homeowner have his house back. This is part of the focus of the restitution and justice that Homeowners for Justice is fighting for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry we didn't get Darwin on the conference call on Skype. He was going to Skype in. We'll get him next time. And until tomorrow, this is CJ Holmes, founder of Homeowners for Justice, signing out.